Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for our Utah Green Schools Kickoff. We are so excited that you are interested in becoming a Utah Green School this 2021-22 school year. And we hope that we can help you through this process and recognize you for the efforts that you are already completing at your school. So just a little note about who we are here at the Utah Society for Environmental Education. We are the Utah affiliate of the North American Association for Environmental Education, and in our work, we promote excellence in environmental education and community engagement to connect all Utahns to their natural world. We are the state affiliate of NAAEE. We're one of over 50 affiliates across the state, across North America, Canada, and Mexico who are working to elevate the field of environmental education. As part of our work as the state affiliate, we engage in a number of efforts, including our annual conference, an awards and recognition program, professional development, where we offer programming in Project Learning Tree, Project WET, the NAAEE Guidelines for Excellence, and more. These are appropriate for K through 12 educators and informal educators. We advocate on behalf of the field of environmental education, including working on developing an environmental literacy plan for the state of Utah. And finally, we work on community partnerships and programs. And one of the programs that we offer is the Utah Green Schools program, which also aligns with the U.S. Department of Education Green Ribbon Schools. This is a great way for your school to be recognized and honored for many of the things that you are already currently working on as a school or institution. To talk a little bit more about Department of Education Green Ribbon Schools, we're really excited to welcome Andrea Falcon, who is going to share more about this program and how you can get involved and recognized. I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to her.
Great. Hey, it's so nice to be here today. Excuse the look, it's Veterans Day, which is a federal holiday, and I was still working and managed to have a few moments to get out for a run. And so I'm still in running clothes. I apologize for that. I want to share some slides and hopefully you will be able to see them in a decent view. We were experimenting with that before this call here. See if those come up for you. Is that okay, guys? Awesome. Okay, well, I can't see my notes, but that's okay. We'll just go with it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about U.S. Department of Education's Green Ribbon Schools award. It's a recognition award, and also kind of Ed's role. A lot of times I get the question at the U.S. Department of Education, what are we doing to encourage green schools, sustainable schools? And it's not entirely intuitive. So I'll talk a little bit about that and how the Utah program fits into this federal work. So U.S. Department of Education Green Ribbon Schools is a recognition award that has been around since 2011, 2012. I actually had the pleasure of creating it under the Obama administration. And it is intended not to be a certification, but to be a communications and outreach tool. And with it, we use it to stand up examples of schools that are progressing on what we call the 3 pillars. That's reducing environmental impact and costs, improving health and wellness, and teaching effective environmental education. All 3, it's not a menu of options, it's not some, it's not one, it's all of the above. And we use those examples, we use our bully pulpit, if you will, at the U.S. Department of Education to highlight those examples and inspire other schools. And that's kind of it. And that's because Ed's authority with regard to school buildings and grounds and curriculum is actually relatively limited. A lot of times people don't realize that in this country, we don't have a Ministry of Education that's in control of everything. We have lots of little education systems, and sustainability is one more thing that is somewhat, it is taking place in somewhat of a grassroots movement all across the country. Green schools are sprouting up, and folks are realizing the value of teaching about sustainability, about reducing their environmental impact, improving health, and they wanted Ed to get into the game and recognize it. However, we have a somewhat circumscribed role in this country in terms of education. So as I said before, and I apologize, my notes are not visible to me, so I'm just kind of making this work. The 3 pillars: environmental impact and cost. So that's everything: waste, water, energy, transportation. Health and wellness, that includes the environmental health of the buildings. So things like ventilation that we've heard so much about because of the pandemic, moisture control, contaminants, daylighting, but also things like outdoors physical activity, nutrition, school garden grown, farm to school, and other aspects of health and wellness that you can imagine. And then effective environmental and sustainability education, wrapping in learning across the curriculum, especially civics, STEM, and understanding how humans impact the various dynamic ecosystems that we live in. So a couple things to note: that this award is, like I said before, but it bears repeating, it's not a certification program. A lot of times people confuse this with a certification. However, there are some great programs in states that do certify schools, that handhold schools through steps. And Utah is one of those states that now will have a green schools program to kind of handhold you through it and then build up to the top tier. I imagine, at least that's how it works in most states, will then be nominated to ED. So that's a really exciting development, because it means that there's places for everybody to connect wherever you are on the green schools journey or continuum. I want to note that there's no cumbersome federal application. In the first year of this award, we got kind of a bad reputation for that. A lot of states decided to go with a more detailed self-audit application. And it turned out that that wasn't what schools needed right now. It wasn't prescribed by ED, it was actually state driven. But since then, I've encouraged states to go with kind of a really pared down format. Certainly in these times with COVID, nobody needs more to do. This is one more thing. There's no funding attached to it. It's not a grant mechanism. So we need to keep it simple for state colleagues, for schools and districts and post-secondary institutions applying. So you'll find that my understanding is Utah's application is streamlined, and a lot of states across the country, if you talk to your peers in other states, are working in that direction. So we're just finding that there is not an appetite for a cumbersome application right now. In any case, the application that you submit in your state is different from other states. They all look different. I have some requirements, high-level requirements of what states submit to us. Speaking of states, sometimes people think that because their state doesn't participate, they will never participate, or all states participate in this. In fact, it's voluntary. Like a lot of things in this country, ED's relationship with state education agencies, it's voluntary. So know that, well, now we have Utah participating, but know if you hear of other schools and districts in other states that would like to apply and their state doesn't participate, their voice makes a difference. And schools advocating with their state education agencies saying that, hey, we're doing this work, we would qualify for this federal award, would you please nominate us, has made a difference in the past. And indeed, it made a difference in Utah, getting Utah to participate. So how the award works is that schools, whether they're schools, districts, or post-secondary institutions, and we actually even allow early learning centers, they must all be nominated by state education authorities. In a lot of cases, states are working with partners such as USEE or other North American Association for Environmental Education affiliates. Sometimes they're working with US Green Building Council affiliates to make these nominations, but states play a role. There is no application directly to ED. You can't find one on my website. It doesn't exist. Each year, schools, states can nominate up to 5 schools or districts, any number within that, any breakdown within that. So it can be 3 districts, 2 schools, 1 early learning, 4 schools, whatever they choose, and 1 higher ed institution. And of course, there are provisions for non-public schools, charter schools, magnet. We encourage states to submit schools serving underserved communities, all that wrapped in. Again, small in scope. We're not really trying to have thousands of schools honored each year because it's recognition only. It's not a certification program. However, at the state level, there are states such as USEE working hard to enroll as many schools as they can, because we want as many schools doing this work as possible. However, we're only going to do federal recognition kind of for the top tier, simply because of capacity reasons. So the time frame for the federal award is that most states have their deadlines to apply to be nominated to ED, the U.S. Department of Education. We, in our federal alphabet soup, that's ED. Because for us, DOE is the Department of Energy. They got that acronym before us. So most states have their deadline in the fall or winter. And I set a deadline usually around February. So this year it's February 18th that states submit to me. And it looks like Utah has set the date of January 31st, 2022 to submit to them. So they're a real short turnaround for you guys to decide who is nominated to ED. So you apply to your state by January 31st, and your state in turn nominates to me to ED by February 18th. Normally we announce the national honorees on Earth Day, April 22nd. A lot of states honor state level awardees, and it sounds like Utah will, and they do it in different ways. And those announcements take place at different times, often before ours. And then we have had our ceremony in summer and in fall. And this year I'm kind of targeting a late July date. It's varied a little bit, certainly with the pandemic, it has varied a little bit. We did manage to have a in-person, small scale in-person ceremony this year. Another component of this work has to do with outreach. So like the award, we kind of built off the award, creating more communications and outreach, essentially, since ED has few policy levers, no funding around school facilities, environment, health. We kind of built out as much as we could around Green Ribbon. So we have a number of things, including a monthly newsletter, social media presence, and the Green Strides Tour. And actually, we've been to over 20 states in the last 7 or 8 years since we started the tour. And that has visited over 100 schools. And usually we map out kind of clusters of our past honorees. The tour visits past U.S. Department of Education Green Ribbon schools. Hopefully one day we'll take the tour to Utah. And the idea is that, like the award, we spotlight your work, and we bring press there. My visit is an excuse to get state and local folks, usually state superintendents come, mayors come, governors, whoever, and we bring more attention to your work, and thus inspiring other schools. So again, another way to use what are limited authorities in these areas to inspire some good work in terms of sustainability. We've been listening and hearing. I'm going to switch gears a little bit here. Wish I had access to my notes, but I do not, so we'll just go with it. To how ED has been more broadly looking at sustainability in schools. And we have now had 10 years of this public engagement initiative, U.S. Department of Education Green Ribbon Schools, and we've learned a lot. We've learned from schools, and we've heard how important it is to have equitable access to healthy, safe, sustainable, resilient 21st century learning environments, and how this affects equity, this affects learning. It affects the where is as important as the how and what. And we know this now. And we're working really hard at the department under this new administration. We've been given kind of additional opportunities under the Biden administration and his call for climate action to do more. And the tricky part at ED is, because we're not the Department of the Energy or the Environmental Protection Agency, we don't have explicit environment authorities. And federal agencies don't get to just do whatever we feel like. We do what Congress authorizes us to do. So right now we're kind of in this exploratory phase, trying to figure out what else we can do beyond Green Ribbon to support this important work that you all are already doing. We've learned over the last 10 years, over the last decade, how important hands-on outdoor learning is. Kids getting out there, getting their hands dirty. I've seen a school garden. I've tramped through many a school garden and seen how important that is to learning science, in language arts, and just getting kids out learning about nutrition, horticulture programs, culinary programs. So wonderful. We've seen the connections in this environmental learning to the green and blue careers of the future, and all across the country. This particular school is in Nebraska. A lot of times people think that this green schools trend is something in California and Connecticut. It is all across the country. And I didn't mention all the photos and where they're from, but we've got green schools in Alabama and Wisconsin and Maine and Washington, all over the place. We've learned a lot from you all about how the importance of conservation, renewables, and waste management. On the tour, we see schools that are brand new, LEED Platinum, beautiful schools with geothermal and solar, but the vast majority of schools we honor for this award are, like most schools in this country, older constructions that are doing good work with what they have. They've gotten, fundraised and built gardens. They've developed recycling programs and composting programs They're looking at indoor and outdoor air quality. They're switching off the lights. They're changing out light bulbs. The simple low-hanging fruit that any school can do, no matter what they have, right? We don't expect for this award, the purpose of this award, that every school is going to have a new construction. We would love that. I would love if we had funding to help with school construction across the country, because I know it is a real challenge and it is a real source of inequity. But for the time being, we recognize schools based on what they're doing with what they have. And we've seen with this award how important safe and healthy school environments are and wellness practices to equity and to learning. I think in particular in the last few years with the Flint water crisis and now the pandemic, we've had this bright spotlight shown on indoor environments, ventilation in particular, and contaminant controls, lead and water, right? But one of the things I try to be a voice around the department, I advise the department on matters related to sustainability, environment, health. And one of the things I try to remind people here, particularly when we're kind of pulled in different directions by different offices at the EPA, is that for schools, it's not one or the other. We don't want a knee-jerk reaction to pandemic or to Flint. It's all of the above. We have to be looking at all of these things: indoor environments, health, wellness, gardens, environmental learning, outdoor learning, conservation efforts, renewables. It's all of the above for us. It's all these things are intrinsically connected for our green schools, and we know that now. So like I mentioned before, we've had this new leadership on climate, very exciting under the last this administration. We continued Green Ribbon. It has not stopped, but now there are new opportunities, and that's really exciting. One thing that has happened in this administration is I was able to work to rethink the department. Each agency is tasked with developing a climate action or adaptation plan. For our purposes, that the distinction isn't very important, but I was able to work with folks around the department to make the department's climate adaptation plan, and you can see it on our website, a little bit more inclusive. So in the past, it focused on departmental operations and impact. However, we know that the U.S. Department of Education is really tiny. For a federal agency, it's only 4,000 people. The real impact of the education sector is in schools across the country. So looking at how this plan is the first time that Ed is looking at how our policies, programs, guidance, technical assistance, and leadership can be used to improve sustainability and climate. So that's kind of exciting to work on that and celebrate that and flesh that out. We had hosted 5 listening sessions in August. You can see those posted online on greenstrides.org. They're not the greatest quality, but they give you a sense that we are kind of working to do more. I'm rebuilding a team here. It kind of ebbs and flows in federal government depending on administration, and I'm really working to build up support for sustainability, health, environment work, holistic work that encompasses all 3 pillars of the award. So we had this climate action listening sessions and the plan. I kind of covered that in the last slide, and Green Strides is another thing I wanted to point you toward. So as I mentioned before, Ed does not have a lot of authorities in this area, but as we developed this award back in 2011, 2012, we realized that there was a real need for schools to have all these many resources that live at different federal agencies, the EPA, the Department of Energy, NOAA, Department of Interior, these different places, in nonprofits as well, the U.S. Green Building Council, Center for Green Schools, and Green Schools National Network, many resources available, but if you're a school, you might not always know where to go, and you shouldn't have to. We're trying to make it a little bit easier by putting it all on greenstrides.org. It is a gift site from the U.S. Green Building Council, and we do have a lot of resources there. You'll see resources pertaining to environmental education, but also environmental impact and also health. So it's a great tool if you're looking for resources in any of the 3 pillars. Kind of use them on your Green Schools journey as you work to apply to the Utah Green Schools program and work on the different areas, because it'll round you out. If you're strong in environmental education, I encourage you to look at what there is on the impact facilities operations side. If you're strong in that, look at maybe the health side, but there's a wealth of resources there, and we're always adding more. There are also a lot of webinars posted from different federal agencies and nonprofits. So I think that's the bulk of what I wanted to cover. And of course, I'm happy to take any questions or do discussion.
Great. Thank you so much for your time today, Andrea. I think especially for us, hearing about Green Ribbon Schools really gets us excited about Utah Green Schools and how these programs work together to support these pillars at our schools across our state and our country. So thank you so much. So, as Andrea mentioned, Department of Education Green Ribbon Schools is a program that is aligned with Utah Green Schools. They both measure the same thing that includes environmental impact and costs, health and wellness, and effective environmental and sustainability education. We're going to talk a little bit more about the timeline of the application and how to complete it. And to do that, Carmen, our programs coordinator, is going to chat more about this process. So I am going to turn things over to her.
Perfect. Thank you, Alex. I slid back there and the wood floor and the wheelie chair got out of control. So as Alex alluded to, Utah Green Schools focuses on those three pillars that Andrea mentioned, which is environmental impacts, health and wellness, and effective environmental sustainability education. And so examples of these things can include time outside, healthy lunch options, mental health support for students and teachers, low flush toilets, LED light bulbs, all of those things that are probably already being incorporated into your school and what you're doing. So the timeline for the application this year is that applications are available now. Schools that would like to register to become a Utah Green School can apply from now through April 2022, and we will provide more information on those application steps. And then, as Andrea mentioned, schools that wish to be considered for Department of Education Green Ribbon status must turn their application into us a little sooner by January of 2022. And those completed applications are submitted to my email directly, and that's right there, programs@uc.org. You can also feel free to send me any other questions, comments, or concerns throughout the entirety of the application process. Me and Alex and the UC team are all here to help and make this as easy and painless as possible. So moving on is what's new. Given the expansion of the UC team, we were able to redo the entire application to be more streamlined and easier to fill out. These new improvements include no more tracking matrix, which was a little clunky and had everybody confused. I think even us, when I looked at it, I was confused. So that's gone. All questions have been rewritten for clarity. We've changed format. And we've also been able to expand resources, and these resources include question and help sessions throughout the application timeline, where I will be available via Zoom for an hour or so to answer any questions, provide any help, and those dates will be scheduled and released shortly. We will also be putting together a series of webinars that coincide with parts of the Green Schools application, such as school recycling and waste reduction and student health and well-being. These webinars will go hand in hand with the application process and are also a great professional development opportunity for teachers that are interested. So the application itself has 3 pieces, like I mentioned, all of which have been recently updated. This first step is to fill out a short intention to apply form. And in this form, we are asking for a $25 recommended donation to help us support the program through help sessions and webinars and really increase the success and longevity of this program. Filling out this form allows us to stay in touch with you and provide you with the support you need. We want to make sure that you are recognized and honored for your efforts, and UC is here to support that. As has been mentioned, both parts of this application are broken down into those 3 pillars. And This first piece of the application is a 47 question multiple choice survey that we will score, and based off of that score, will award you Utah Green School status. This survey will calculate that score automatically, but there is an option for you next to each question. Points will be available for you to track that if you would like to do so on your own and automatically know if you will be a Utah Green School or not. The second component of this application is a narrative form that is open answer and allows for you to elaborate more on the things that you are doing within your school. That also follows these three pillars and is well detailed and noted. We definitely don't expect you to be writing us the most fantastic essays of all time. We just want paragraphs that are concise, good sentences telling us about the great things that you're doing and some pictures in there as well. Finally, it's also important to develop a support system, and we recommend developing a Utah Green Schools team. This team can and should include teachers, administrators, facilities personnel, students when applicable. So that's looking likely well into middle school and high school, but if you are an elementary school that would like to involve your students, that would be great as well. And then a possible PTA member. All of these people are encouraged. If you're not able to put that together, it definitely doesn't mean that you should not apply to be a school or that you can't do the application. We're here to help and support you with that. We also want you to capture as much information as possible and be recognized for the great things that you do for your students. And while we have worked hard to streamline and make this application easier, we still know that it is a lot to ask of teachers. And so don't be discouraged or overwhelmed. We're really here for you and to help you with this process. So Utah Green Schools can also help support SEED standards. Environmental Education and Project Learning Tree, PLT, support our new science standards. In addition to those webinars and help sessions, UC is also offering a December PLT course about teaching environmental education in wintertime, all of the benefits associated with it, and how you can get kids active and having fun even when there's snow drifts and everyone's cold. It can still be a great and unique learning environment. EE is an easy way to demonstrate the 3 dimensions of learning and phenomena as well, and provides great professional development. There are also numerous benefits to learning outside. These include, but are definitely not limited to, that the outdoors are a resource for learning, engagement, and health. Greater access to the outdoors is associated with reduced stress, greater mental and physical health, and well-being. If you or a colleague are interested in these benefits, or if you would like to learn more, please reach out and we can provide you with that data and those resources if you are hoping to branch out more and get your students more outside. And to wrap up, I wanted to show the timeline one more time just to give people the opportunity to make notes and really see that again. As a reminder, applications are available now, and schools have through April 2022 to submit that Utah Green Schools application and have till January of 2022 to submit that Department of Education Green Ribbon status. So next steps for you, if you have watched this and are interested in applying, is to fill out that application of intent. If you're unable to make a donation, that's not a problem. It's just a suggestion. We're really wanting to get everybody in every school to be able to apply. And from there, you will be contacted and given all of the necessary tools and application steps that you need. On our website for the Utah Green Schools page, which is this one right here, you're able to preview both the narrative form and the 47 question survey. So you don't have to log in and see those questions for the first time right as you're getting ready to fill out that application. So we definitely encourage you to visit our website, download those resources. This webinar will also is being recorded and will be put up there and on YouTube to live forever, easily accessible to anyone. And again, I'm here to answer questions, comments, concerns. I will be available throughout the application process. So if there are any questions, or Alex, if you have anything else to add, then I will stop share. And are there any questions?